You're doing everything you can. Your treatment plans are solid, your staff are trained, your materials are prepared. But no matter how much effort you pour in, something still isn't working. The parents aren't following through. They cancel sessions, they nod when you finally meet with them, but you're not sure anything actually sticks. And your RBTs feel it too. They're working hard during sessions, but the progress is slow. They're losing motivation and burnout is creeping in. If you're honest, you've probably started wondering, is it even worth it to keep trying to get these parents involved? You know, parent training is a critical component of a successful ABA program. You've tried giving them handouts, explaining reinforcement, modeling in session. You've even scheduled training weekly, only to spend half the time talking about what went wrong at school that day and the other half the rescheduling the canceled sessions. You're not alone. Here's the truth most of us aren't taught in grad school. Parent training isn't just about participation, it's about buy-in. The parent's belief that ABA is actually effective for their child and their understanding of their role in effective services. When families are truly invested in services, everything changes. Sessions become smoother, generalization improves, RBT burnout drops because they see the impact that they're making. Parents stop canceling and actually ask more questions. That kind of engagement doesn't happen by chance. It takes a system, a structure, a way to build parent behavior, just like we build learner behavior one meaningful step at a time. That's what this course is about. Not checklists, not one size fits all solutions, but a proven framework to help you turn parent training into the most powerful, impactful part of your ABA program. But as usual, I'm getting ahead of myself. For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Amelia Delphonse. I am a BCBA and I co-founded Master ABA with my twin sister, Diana Kelly. Through Master ABA, we help BCBAs gain confidence in their skills so they can have a greater impact with their learners. Our focus is on ethical, compassionate, learner-centered practices. This course is eligible for CEUs. You must watch the video all the way to the end. There will be a short quiz in the Mission Accomplished lesson. You must also submit this quiz to receive your CEU certificate. There will be 3 code words throughout the presentation. Make sure to write them down. I will repeat them, but they won't appear on your screen, so you will need to be listening to catch the code words. You will need these code words for the quiz. Please make sure to hit the submit button at the bottom of the form, not just the mark complete button at the bottom of the lesson. In the form, the quiz is also a brief survey. I really appreciate your feedback because this helps me improve the courses that I'm creating. If for some reason you miss a step or have any trouble with your certificate, email me at support@masteraba.com. I'm happy to help with anything that you need. I want to start by sharing a story that fundamentally changed the way I think about parent training and why I believe it's not just a component of ABA, but the core of what makes it actually work. It was 6 months after I passed my BCBA exam. I accepted what I thought was a dream job. I was the director of 2 clinics in New Hampshire for a large nonprofit. I walked into that role excited and completely unprepared. I was the only active BCBA. We had 26 clients and 16 staff, and there was a to-do list that really just never ended. But the thing that tripped me up the most wasn't the staffing or supervision or even the treatment planning. It was getting those plans approved. More than 80% of our clients were covered by the same Medicaid managed care company. And the reviewer for that company, we'll call her Beth for now, fundamentally disagreed with our entire model. We provided clinic-based services. Our family chose clinic-based services, but Beth just didn't care. Every time I submitted a plan, she called me, and every time she asked the same question: when will all services be transitioned to home? She was adamant that home-based services were the only way to ensure generalization. Over and over, she told me, teaching skills in a clinic setting offers little to no value. As a brand new BCBA, it shook me. I started questioning everything, our model, our effectiveness, even whether I belonged in this role. But I also knew our families. Nearly all of them had already tried home-based early intervention, and for various reasons, including privacy, overwhelm, and a lack of results, it didn't work for them. It wasn't what they wanted. Despite everything and explaining this to Beth, she continued to reject our plans unless they included a clear transition to home-based services. But here's the thing, that plan didn't just go against our family's preferences, it didn't work with our business model either. And I wasn't willing to write a plan that I had no intention of following. So I did what I always do when something doesn't make sense, and I went to the research. I dug into every article I could find on generalization, natural environments, and meaningful outcomes. I read between sessions, I brainstormed after hours, and what I found was something that I already knew in my gut to be true. Even with home-based services, generalization doesn't just happen, it requires something more, and that's parent training. The more I read, the clearer it became. Parent training wasn't a side note. It wasn't just something we tacked on to meet insurance requirements. It was the key to everything. And it became my obsession. I stopped trying to write plans Beth would approve and started writing plans that would actually make a difference. Plans that prioritize parent training, not as a separate service, but as the core strategy for achieving generalization. Every plan I submitted still triggered a call. And honestly, I really dreaded those calls. But with each one, I refined, and strengthened my approach. I gathered more examples, more evidence, more conviction. And over time, those plans became something different. They weren't just documents to justify hours, they became the foundation for a system I still use today. A system designed not to get compliance from parents, but to get and earn their buy-in. And that system is what I'm sharing with you in this course. Before we move on, I want to make sure you have your first code word. Your first code word is believe. When parents believe that you can help make their lives easier, resistance melts away. So one more time, that first code word is believe. Let's talk about the real reason that you're here. Parent training isn't working the way that it should. You're showing up with the strategies, worksheets, and ideas. You're doing the teaching, you're setting the goals, but the parents are distracted. They cancel, they agree with your suggestions, but then nothing changes. Maybe you're seeing families who skip training sessions or seem disengaged when they actually do attend. RBTs who are frustrated that nothing's being followed through at home. You might also see that parents who look to you for answers, but maybe they're not using the tools that you're giving them. And when parents don't follow through, progress stalls. Behavior plans start to fall apart and burnout climbs. You know, this isn't about blaming families. These are parents who love their children deeply, but something is missing. And when parent training fails, the consequences ripple outward. The clients get fewer hours because the parents cancel sessions and underutilize the approved hours. Your client's progress becomes stagnant, and your own confidence begins to take a hit. And even worse, insurance companies look at low parent involvement as a reason to either deny or reduce services. Parent training isn't just a component of ABA. It's the bridge between what we teach in sessions and what actually lasts after sessions are done. When the bridge breaks, everything we're building with the child risks falling apart. So let's be honest, ABA without meaningful parent engagement is like writing a behavior plan in a vacuum. Skills that don't generalize fade away. Progress made in session gets undone at home. And it doesn't just affect one family, it affects your entire caseload. Research by Bears et al. 2015 shows that parents who feel confident using ABA strategies are more likely to see meaningful gains. And according to Allen and Warzak, 2000, when families are stressed or unsupported, they're less likely to follow through with even the most well-designed plans. Even high-quality services fail if the parent's system isn't part of the intervention. So we need to stop thinking of parent training as an add-on or a requirement. It's a behavior change program for the adults in the room. And just like any other behavior change program, it needs a clear structure, realistic goals, reinforcement, data tracking, and flexibility. That's what we're going to talk about for the rest of this course. Before we go any further, I want to pause here and say something that's really important. This isn't your fault. If you're feeling frustrated with low parent engagement, if you've tried everything and nothing's sticking, it's not because you're doing it wrong. It's because no one gave you a system. Most BCBAs aren't part of the onboarding process for new families. You don't get to set expectations from day one. You're handed a case, a treatment plan, a schedule, and you're expected to build buy-in after services have already started. That's like showing up on the second day of school, halfway through a lecture, and being told you're responsible for teaching the class. It just doesn't work. When I first established my parent training program in New Hampshire, I made a conscious decision to do things differently. From the very first phone call or tour with the parents, I talked about parent training as just one of the core things that we do, not as an optional service, not as something that's required by the insurance company, but as an expected and natural part of the process. Parent training is part of what we offer with every family. I work with you to help make things easier at home. It wasn't a separate service. It wasn't a condition. It was just how we did ABA. And because I set the expectations before services even began, families came in already understanding that parent training wasn't a side task. It was part of the solution. But if you didn't get that chance, if you walked into a case with no system in place, it makes perfect sense that you're struggling to get parents involved right now. This course isn't about pointing fingers or making you feel like you've failed. It's about giving you the tools and structure that should have been there from the start. Because when we treat parent engagement as a behavior change process, not just as a conversation, we finally have the power to shape it. It's tempting to say that the problem is the system, that we were never taught how to engage parents, that we weren't given the right tools. And that's partially true, but it's not the whole story. The problem isn't that our science doesn't work. The problem is that we're using our science in a way that strips out what makes it human. Let's look at BST, behavioral skills training. It's a powerful model and it works, and the research is there. But when we apply it in parent training, here's what often happens. We rush through the instruction, we model the skill once, we do a quick role play, we might give some corrective feedback, and then we move on to the next skill because we're data driven, we're efficient, we're taught to be precise. But in our precision, we miss something that's critical, and that's the relationship with the parent. We forget that we're not just teaching behavior change procedures. We're teaching parents, real, actual people, how to use those procedures. And if those people feel judged, overwhelmed, or unsure, they're not going to rehearse. They don't ask questions, and they don't follow through. Not because they're lazy and not because they don't care, but because we skipped the part that matters most. Ask yourself, do they trust us? Do they feel seen, heard, safe? When we ignore the emotional and relational side of parent training, we unintentionally create conditions where parents feel talked down to, or maybe they feel rushed. Maybe they're confused, but they're afraid to ask questions. They could be worried that they're doing something wrong. And that's when they disengage. Not because our framework is wrong, but because our delivery is incomplete. That's what needs to change. We don't need to throw out BST. We don't need to reinvent ABA. We just need to bring the human back into how we teach it. The science works when we apply it with compassion, context, and collaboration. Before we move on, I want to give you a moment to reflect. Think about the families on your current caseload. Think about the parent sessions you've had in the last few weeks, maybe even in the last few years. Ask yourself, are the parents truly engaged or just going through the motions? Have they built habits that last beyond the session, or are they still relying on you to carry the plan? Do they feel confident and capable, or are they overwhelmed, confused, or withdrawn? Do they feel like partners in the process, or like they're being evaluated every time you meet? And maybe the most important question of all, are you getting the outcomes you want from the parent training you're delivering? You don't have to have the perfect answer. This isn't about judgment. It's about getting honest with yourself, because the strategies we use only matter if they work in real life for real families. And if they're not working the way that we'd hoped, then it's time to try something new. If your answers to those reflection questions made you feel a little uncomfortable, it's okay. You're not alone. I've been there. We've all had those moments where we leave a parent training session wondering, did that even help? But here's the good news. There is a better way, a way to provide parent training that builds confidence and not confusion. It's a way to shape parent behavior the same way we shape any meaningful skill, with intention, reinforcement, and care. And that's why we created the Achieve Parent Training Framework, a step-by-step process for helping families move from passive participants to fully committed partners in their child's progress. This framework combines the behavioral science you already know with the relational strategies most of us never really learned. It gives you the structure to make parent training effective without sacrificing compassion, flexibility, or real life relevance. So let me walk you through the 7 core components. The Achieve framework is a step-by-step process to build meaningful parent engagement based on behavioral science, practical strategies, and real-world compassion. Each step is intentional, and each one builds momentum. Together, they help shift parent training from something that families tolerate to something that they trust, value, stick with, and even look forward to. The first is to assess the environment. We start by getting a clear picture of where the parent is right now. That includes their stress levels, daily demands, their values, and barriers to follow through. We use tools like the parent stress scale, the ACT matrix, and the Achieve assessment to understand what's helping and what's getting in the way. C is for collaborate on goals. Instead of assigning goals based on assessments alone or based on what's the child's goals, we co-create them with the family. We focus on what's meaningful to them, not just what's next on a checklist. When goals align with their values and lived experience, motivation and follow through go way up. H is for hook with reinforcement. Just like with our clients, parent behavior is shaped by consequences. If training feels punishing or pointless, follow through just disappears. This step is about building early wins, quick strategies that show results fast, and identifying what truly reinforces the parent's behavior. I is for introduce skills gradually. We still use BST. It's a solid model, but we slow it down, focus on context, and never forget the relationship behind the skill. We teach skills the same way we'd want to be taught ourselves, with patience, modeling, and meaningful rehearsal, not pressure or performance. E is for embed it in the everyday. This is where we shift from effort to habit. Instead of asking parents to make time for strategies, we build those strategies into routines they're already doing, like brushing teeth, meal times, or getting ready for bed. This reduces resistance and makes follow through sustainable and easy for parents. And V is for visualize progress. We show families how far they've come, whether that's a simple graph, a side-by-side video clip, or a moment of verbal praise. We make success visible. When parents see that their actions make a difference, they're more likely to keep going. And the final E is for evolve the plan. No parent, no child, no family stays the same forever. That's why our parent training can't stay static. We regularly revisit the plan, check for new barriers or stressors, and make sure our strategies still fit the family's real life. This is the Achieve framework. It's not just a tool, it's a mindset. One that centers on community collaboration, clarity, and compassion. And now we're going to walk through each of those steps in a little bit more detail, starting with how you can assess the environment. Every meaningful intervention we create starts with an assessment. But how often are you assessing during your parent training? We might assess the child's behavior. We might even assess the home environment for safety, but we don't always assess what's going on with the parent themselves. What's working for them? What's getting in the way? What stressors are they carrying into the session? What values are shaping their decisions or derailing them? And that's what this step is all about, getting clear on the context in which the parent is being asked to change. Because if we don't understand the environment that we're asking them to succeed in, then we're just really guessing on what the parent needs to be able to implement the skills that we're teaching. I want to share a story with you that still sits with me to this day about the importance of not assuming you know what a family needs. Years ago, I was working with a young mother. She was just 24 years old and she already had 4 young children. My client was one of the ones that were in the middle. When I first started, I did what I thought I was supposed to do. I was warm. I asked a few questions, tried to build some rapport, and then I just jumped right into parent training. I started teaching her what I thought she needed to know: how to use reinforcement, how to use choices to build cooperation, and how to redirect effectively. The things we're trained to teach, but that's what I didn't. But here's what I didn't ask. What was her day-to-day like? What was she already trying? What did she want to be different, not just for the child, but for herself? I missed all of that. And because I didn't slow down to assess the environment, I didn't know that this family was living in poverty. I didn't know that this mother had already lost 2 other children in infancy. I didn't know that the father of the youngest child was verbally and sometimes physically abusive. I didn't know she was holding together a household in crisis. And I was sitting there asking her to teach skills she didn't even care about. She didn't need a handout. She needed someone to see her. And I missed that opportunity because I didn't ask the right questions. It wasn't a failure of knowledge. It was a failure of context. And it changed the way I approach parent training forever. Now I always start by assessing the environment, not just where the child is, but where the parent is as well. Because if we don't start there, we're building a plan on ground that can't hold the plan. A 2005 study by Baker Erickson et al. Found that parents of children with autism face elevated stress related to factors like child communication deficits, disruptive behaviors, daily caregiving demands, and social isolation. This shouldn't be a surprise to you. You work with these families. You see this every day. This stress doesn't just affect them, it directly impacts their ability to engage in parent training, implement strategies, and stay consistent. In other words, stress isn't just background noise. It's part of the contingency in the environment that we're working in. Similarly, Allen and Morzak, 2000, argued that non-adherence to treatment plans often isn't a result of parent disinterest, but of poor reinforcement systems and misaligned expectations. We need to understand what competing contingencies might be shaping the parent's behavior. That starts with assessing and not assuming. So when we talk about assessing the environment, what does that actually mean? It's not just asking how their day went or checking if they have any questions for you. It means getting curious, and I mean really curious about what's happening around the behavior change that we're asking for. There are a few key dimensions I always look at when I'm starting with a new family. First, I'm looking at stressors. What is overwhelming this parent right now? Is it time? Are they experiencing financial strain? Is it the child's behavior? Are they navigating some challenges with the school system? Or are they caring for multiple kids? If we don't understand what's keeping them up at night, we risk layering more pressure onto an already maxed out system. Second, we need to look at their values. What actually matters to this family? What do they want more of or less of in their day-to-day life? Is it more calm during dinner, more connection during play, or are they looking for less chaos at bedtime? We need to know what they care about before we try to teach them anything. And next, we look at barriers. What's getting in the way of implementing strategies? Is it the environment? Do they lack space or routine? Is it something that's emotional, like anxiety or trauma that the parent is experiencing? Or is it something that's logistical, like juggling appointments or even unreliable transportation? Without knowing the barriers, we risk mistaking resistance for laziness when it's really just inaccessibility. We also want to explore their history. Has this family had ABA before? Did they feel supported or did they feel judged? What worked for them and what didn't? That history colors everything we do moving forward. Then there's skill level. What do they already know about behavior? Have they tried reinforcement systems before? Have they used visual schedules or token boards? Are we starting from scratch or do they just need a few adjustments? And finally, think about reinforcers for the parents, not just for the child. What outcomes are reinforcing for them? Is it having a smoother school drop-off? Maybe they care about a calmer bedtime. Maybe they value feeling more confident and in control as a parent. These are the outcomes that will keep them coming back to the training and implementing what we teach. When we understand these 6 areas, the stressors, values, barriers, history, skill level, and reinforcers, we're not just assessing, we're building the foundation for trust, collaboration, and long-term success. Now that we've talked about what to assess, let's talk about how to actually go about assessing it without turning it into some sort of formal exam or making parents feel like they're under a microscope. The goal here is not to evaluate the parent, it's to understand them better, to learn what's working, what's not, and where we can make meaningful progress. So let me walk you through 3 tools I use most often and how you can integrate them into your own practice starting right away. First, you can use the parent stress scale. This tool was developed by Barry and Jones in 1995, and it's a simple 18-item self-report questionnaire that gives you a baseline for how stressed a parent is feeling. It covers both the positive and negative aspects of parenting, so it's not just focused on the hard stuff. We have permission from the authors to share this with all of you, so if you're taking this course for CEUs, you can download it in the bonuses section of this course. We've even created an Excel scoring sheet to make it easier to score. It only takes a few minutes to complete, and it gives you valuable insight that you can track over time. But remember, this isn't about getting a number for your data sheet. It's about opening up a conversation. I'll often say, let's go through this together so I can see where I can support you better. Next, I use the ACT matrix. I love this tool because it helps us shift the conversation from what's wrong to what matters. The ACT matrix helps you and the parent identify two key things: what they want to move toward, which include their values, their hopes, and their goals, and what they want to move away from. This includes things like their stressors, fears, and any painful experiences that might be holding them back. I use this tool collaboratively, usually during the first or second session, and I don't use a rigid template. I keep it conversational. I might ask, when you think about your family 6 months from now, what do you hope feels easier or more joyful? That one question can give you more insight than a checklist ever could. This tool shifts the parent's focus from fixing behavior to actually building a life that they care about. And that changes everything. I'm not going to go into detail about how to use the ACT matrix right now, but I do have another presentation that I'll link to that will show you exactly how to use the ACT matrix to build a collaborative relationship with parents. It's truly one of my favorite tools because it makes things that feel abstract much more concrete. The third tool is the Achieve Parent Training Assessment. We created this assessment because we couldn't find anything else out there that actually measured parent skills in a structured and flexible way. This tool lets you assess things like, can the parent understand what their child is communicating with their behavior? Or do they know how to prompt or reinforce consistently? Or are they using strategies meaningfully or just going through the motions? I don't recommend starting with the full assessment. Instead, just choose one or two skill areas that connect to something real, like communication or foundational skills or bedtime and mealtime routines. Achieve Online offers a survey you can complete with parents to guide you to 12 different semi-custom parent training plans, which leads you to focusing on 7 skill areas that align with the needs of your family. This makes the training immediately relevant and helps you focus on doing less better. I'm going to be linking to a video walkthrough below this video, so you can check it out if that's something that you're interested in. So how do you actually get started with all of this? Here's what I recommend. The first step is to start with curiosity, not correction. Don't jump in with strategies. Start with a question like, what's been the hardest for you lately? Or what do you hope feels different 6 months from now? These questions open up the space for honesty without the parent feeling pressured. The second step is, don't just hand out a form to them. Complete assessments collaboratively with them, whether it's the parent stress scale or the ACT matrix. Review the responses together, validate what you see. Say things like, it makes so much sense that this feels overwhelming right now. That small moment of acknowledgement builds more trust than the whole packet of resources. And the third step is to look for any overlaps. Ask yourself, where do stress, values, and skill gaps intersect? For example, if bedtime is stressful and important to the parent, that's a perfect entry point for teaching reinforcement and prompting strategies. You're not just teaching reinforcement, you're helping bedtime feel better. And finally, set the tone that parent training is individualized. This isn't a curriculum being done to them. It's a partnership that you're building with them. You're not delivering a service, you're building capacity. And that starts by understanding the world the parent is living in today before asking them to change anything about it. Once you've assessed the environment, once we understand the parent's stress, their values, their context, the next step, C, is to collaborate on goals. And I want to pause on that word collaborate. Not assign, not prescribe, but collaborate. Because when parents feel that they're part of choosing the destination, they're a lot more likely to help you drive the car. In a 2015 study by Bears et al., researchers compared parent education to parent training. Both groups received information, and only the group that actively learned how to use strategies within goals that were relevant to their daily lives showed significant reductions in challenging behavior. More importantly, the researchers found that even education alone led to 31.8% improvement in parent-reported behavior. So why is this? Because parents begin to view their child's behavior differently. They developed more realistic expectations. They had a context for what was happening. This tells us something that's really important for parent training. When parents feel like their goals and perspectives matter, everything else starts to work better. This also ties beautifully in with the ACT research, which shows that when we align actions with values, we see more commitment, follow through, and long-term change. So instead of creating goals for families based solely on developmental assessments or standard progression lists, we need to create goals with families based on what actually matters to them. I learned the importance of collaborating on goals the hard way. I was working with a mother of 2 autistic children, both with significant needs and intense behavioral challenges. These kids were really sweet, but their behavior was really severe. There was aggression, self-injury, serious property destruction. The younger one dislocated her knee during a tantrum from kicking the floor. The older one jumped so frequently and forcefully that he literally caused dips in the floor of their rental trailer. They both used communication devices and had been taught to mand, and they manded frequently for their favorite food and activities. And that's really what they did constantly. Their mother was one of the most dedicated that I've ever worked with. She was doing everything she could to keep them safe and meet their needs, but she was overwhelmed. She was a single mother. The kids antagonized each other. The tantrums were so disruptive that the police had been called by neighbors more than once. The youngest one regularly eloped. If the doors and windows weren't locked with keys, she would wander off. She'd been found at the local library more than one time. I cared so deeply about this family, and I worried constantly about their safety. Our parent training goals focused on teaching the mother and about the foundation of behavior and how to implement basic interventions. We wanted her to understand how her responses might be maintaining some of the behavior we were trying to reduce. So we created goals that mirrored what we were doing in session. I worked closely with my supervisor to align our parent training with the treatment plan, and it seemed logical at the time. I thought if she learns these strategies, things are going to improve at home. It was a common approach. Maybe it's one that you've used too. You look at the child's goals, you pull from a list of common parent training perspectives, objectives, you try to keep things efficient. So week after week, I showed up. I talked about antecedents and consequences. I explained how reinforcement worked. I modeled strategies and did my best to avoid jargon, but nothing changed. The interventions weren't being used at home. The behavior didn't improve. And honestly, I started to feel like a failure. Finally, after months of this, I asked the question I should have started with. Can I ask you why you haven't been using the strategies we've worked on? She looked at me and said, I just don't see how they're going to help. I can't picture using any of them. I don't think that they're going to work in our home. And that moment stopped me in my tracks. From my perspective, it was clear that a few changes in her interactions could make a huge difference. But to her, it all felt irrelevant. She was too disconnected from what the goals were, too disconnected from what really mattered to her. Her vision and mine were just not the same. And that's when it hit me. I had never actually asked her what she wanted. I didn't know her values. I didn't know what outcomes actually mattered to her. I had been teaching her things that I thought were helpful without asking what she needed to feel hopeful. After sitting with that for a while, I decided to take a different approach. Through a few vulnerable conversations, she opened up with me. She told me that she was terrified about what would happen to her children as she got older. She was already an older mother as it was, and she was worried about who would care for them when she was no longer able to. She wanted them to become more independent, not just better behaved. And suddenly everything shifted. Our goals changed, our priorities changed, and the parent training finally started to work because we weren't just managing behavior anymore. We were building toward a future that she actually believed in. This is what collaborating on goals really means. It means stepping back from our assumptions. It means letting go of what we think should be next. And it means anchoring our goals in what matters most to the people who will be living with them every single day. If you're anything like me, you've been told to set goals collaboratively before, but you aren't actually doing it because it sounds easier than it actually is. So let's talk about how to actually collaborate on goals in a way that's structured, behavior analytic, and still deeply human. Here's how to approach goal setting when working with a new family. I start by asking open-ended questions, not about goals, but about values. Because let's be honest, asking parents, what are your goals for your child can feel overwhelming, vague, and even a little intimidating. So I ask something more grounded in their real everyday life. What part of your day feels the most stressful? What's something you'd love to do with your child that's hard right now? What would help you feel more confident as a parent? These questions open doors. They help you learn what matters most without making the parent feel like they need to come up with a list of goals on their own. And more often than not, the answers lead directly to skill building opportunities we can work on together. So next, I look at the overlap between the values and feasibility. This is a key part. Let's say a parent tells me they want their child to sit through an hour-long family holiday meal, but right now the child can't sit for more than 2 minutes. Rather than telling the parent that their goal isn't realistic, or worse, just ignoring it, I find a way to honor the intention of the goal while making it practical. So we might create a shaping plan to gradually increase seated behavior during meals or family story time. That way, we're building toward their goal, not ours, but doing it in a way that's actually achievable. Once we've landed on focus, we write the goal together in everyday language. Yes, we still need to translate that eventually into clinical terms for the treatment plan, especially if the service is funded by insurance. But first, it needs to make sense to the parent. So instead of writing something like the parent will demonstrate reinforcement by providing praise and high preference items following child cooperation with task demands, I might start with writing, mom will use high fives, favorite snacks, or fun time rewards when Junior follows directions to complete tasks. It's the same skill, but the second version invites understanding and follow through. And if they understand the goal, they're far more likely to engage with it. Finally, I check for buy-in. I always ask, does this feel like something that matters to you? Because if the answer is no, then we don't have a goal. We have a suggestion. And suggestions don't create behavior change. Shared goals do. All right, so now we're moving on to letter H. Once you've built trust and created shared goals, the next step is simple on paper, but easy to overlook in practice. And that step H is hook with reinforcement. Why parents follow through or don't with strategies that we teach them. You have to make following through feel good to the parent. This step is about helping parents want to engage, not because we ask them to, not because it's written into the plan, but because doing it actually makes their lives better. That's where reinforcement comes in, not just for the child, but for the parent themselves. Aubrey Daniels in 2009 introduced the picnic analysis to explain what drives human behavior. He argues that behaviors are more likely to occur when they're followed by consequences that are positive, immediate, and certain, and less likely to occur when they're followed by consequences that are negative, immediate, and certain. Think about that in the context of parent training. When we give a parent a new strategy, like using differential reinforcement or a visual schedule, what are the consequences for the parent? Is it easy to implement? Does it create relief quickly? Do they feel more in control, or do they feel more judged? If implementing your strategy results in more tantrums, more resistance, more work, and no immediate payoff for the parent, guess what happens? They're going to stop doing it, not because they don't care, but because the contingency isn't reinforcing to them. I once worked with a parent whose child had a tendency to tantrum during cleanup time. And we were teaching her to prompt the child to clean up toys, reinforce small attempts, and use a visual schedule. But every day or every week, she showed up saying, I tried, but it just didn't work. I was really frustrated. I had demonstrated it, modeled it. I had rehearsed it with her. I had even helped her write out the steps. So one day I asked, what did you do when cleanup time came around? And she said, well, I just put the toys away myself. It's faster, and then we can move on. And that was it. Putting the toys away herself was more immediate and certain and less stressful than prompting and managing her child's resistance. That was the behavior that was getting reinforced, not because she didn't care or want him to clean up, but because the alternative wasn't working for her. That's when I realized we needed to rethink not just what we were teaching, but how quickly she was seeing results. We shifted the goal to reinforcing any attempt from the child, even just handing over one block. And I reinforced her too, pointing out what she did well, giving her space to reflect, and celebrating all the small moments of success that she saw. And that really changed a lot of her perspectives. Here's how you can hook parents with reinforcement intentionally and effectively. First, create a quick win as early in training as possible. If you can do it on the first day, then you're going to be golden. Choose a skill or situation where success is very likely and something that's low effort but high impact. This might be getting a child to put her shoes away or putting her pajamas in the hamper when she gets dressed in the morning. When the parent sees it work, they get reinforced, and this builds momentum. The second step is to reinforce the parent's behavior, not just the child's outcome. Acknowledge what the parent is doing well. Say things like, you handled that really calmly, or that was a great use of reinforcement. Did you see how he responded to that? Your feedback is an important reinforcer, especially to parents who often feel like they're failing. And then analyze the parent's contingencies using picnic. Ask yourself, what's reinforcing not doing the interventions? How can I shift the environment so the behavior I want to see is more immediate, certain, and positive than for the parent? And then shape participation like you would shape any skill. If a parent isn't doing everything, start with what they are doing. Reinforce effort, build from there. Parent training isn't all or nothing. It's a behavior change plan like all of the other plans that we work on. Parents aren't resistant or non-compliant. They're human. And when we use the science of reinforcement to shape their behavior with the same care that we give our clients, engagement stops being something that we have to get and starts being something that we build together. Before we go to the next step, let's make sure you have your second code word. That second code word is hook. When we hook parents with reinforcement, they stop canceling sessions and start engaging with you. Again, that second code word is hook. Okay, so let's move on to step I. I is introduce skills gradually. And this means teaching less and practicing better. If you've ever left a parent session thinking, I've taught them everything they need to know, why didn't they use any of it? You're not alone. And the problem usually isn't a lack of instruction. And in fact, it's usually too much instruction too fast. Most BCBAs are trained to use behavioral skills training or BST. And we should be because it works. But here's the catch. BST isn't just a checklist, it's a relationship-based teaching strategy. And when we apply it like a checklist, we might be rushing through the steps, skipping practice, or overloading the parent with information. We break the very process that we're trying to follow. Parsons, Rollyson, and Reed, 2012, described BST as one of the most effective training strategies for building practical skills. It includes 4 main components: instruction, modeling, rehearsal, and feedback. But here's what they also emphasize. Each component must be meaningful. If rehearsal is skipped, if feedback is rushed, if modeling isn't relatable to the parent's context, the process loses its power. Parents don't need more skills. They need more time and support to own the ones that they're being taught. Not every parent is going to tell you that they're overwhelmed. Most won't say this is too much, but they'll show you in other ways. And if we're not watching for it, we're going to miss it. And we're going to keep pushing forward when we should be slowing down. So what does parent overwhelm look like? Here are a few signs that I've learned to pay close attention to. The parent might be nodding through your explanation, but then doesn't ask any follow-up questions. They might hesitate when it's time to practice the skill. They might say things like, I'll try it later, or that makes sense, but then they don't follow through by the next session. Their implementation looks inconsistent, rushed, or hesitant. You might also notice a lot of yeah, but responses when you troubleshoot together. These are all behavioral indicators that you might be moving faster than their confidence allows. And the key here is that every parent is different. One parent might pick up a skill after one modeling in a quick rehearsal. Another might need multiple sessions practicing just the prompting phase. Neither is wrong. Your skill as a BCBA isn't just in teaching, it's in adjusting the teaching to meet the needs of the individual learner. You do that with your clients. You need to be doing that with your parents as well. So if you're ever unsure, just ask yourself, what's more important right now? Checking off the training objective or building momentum with this parent? Because momentum leads to sustainability, and sustainability starts with confidence. All right, so let's keep moving forward. We're on to the first of the E steps, and this is embed in the everyday. Build habits, not homework. This step might be my favorite because it's the one that changes everything for families. It's the difference between ABA feeling like a list of things that they have to remember and ABA becoming something that they just do. In this step, we stop giving parents strategies to add to their already packed day, and we start building those strategies into the routines they're already living and using every day. Generalization has been a core principle of applied behavior analysis since Stokes and Bear in 1977. That's a long time. They introduced the concept of using programming common stimuli and training in natural contexts. But here's the thing. Just teaching a skill in the natural environment doesn't mean it's going to stick. Just like I found out with the research when I was working with Beth. What supports generalization and long-term maintenance is making the behavior fit seamlessly into the real routines of real life. And behavior that fits easily are the behaviors that get repeated, which is why, from a systems perspective, this step is also tied to the response effort and habit formation. Behaviors that become a habit become easy to do and require no active thought to complete. If using a strategy is high effort, if it requires remembering a complex sequence or finding special materials, it's not going to stick. But it's embedded into something that the parent's already doing. It becomes part of the flow of their day. So what does it actually look like to help families embed ABA strategies into everyday routines? It's not about overhauling the family's day or adding more to their already packed schedule. It's about finding the moments that are already happening and showing parents how to bring the strategies into those spaces. You want to tie new strategies to an existing routine whenever possible. For example, a parent might be already making breakfast every morning while their child sits at the counter. You could put a simple visual schedule on the fridge that helps the child know what's coming next. Maybe it says something like breakfast, then brush teeth, then get your shoes on. The schedule doesn't become another task. It becomes part of the breakfast routine. The tools needed to implement the schedule have a specific place in the home, and it's close to where the parent would need to use it. Or here's one more example. Might be a bedtime routine. Maybe bedtime's chaotic and stories are part of that routine. We teach the parent to model pointing to pictures, labeling objects, or prompting simple answers during the story, not as a separate lesson, but as part of how they already are reading together. It's ABA, but it's disguised as connection. These aren't extra assignments. They're not another task to complete. These are real parenting moments with real potential to support learning, growth, and connection. This approach works not just because it's easier, but because it's built on solid behavioral science. Here's what's happening under the hood when we embed strategies into routines. First, we are capitalizing on stimulus control. We place prompts, visuals, and supports where the behaviors happen. When a parent sees the schedule on the fridge or the token board on a bathroom mirror, they're more likely to use it because it's in the right place at the right time. We are scheduling reinforcement. We help parents recognize and use reinforcers that are already present in the routine. Maybe they're giving a high five after putting on their child's shoes. Maybe they're playing a favorite song on the drive to school to make that transition a little bit easier. We're not asking them to create new rewards. We're helping them see where the rewards already could be for their child. We are staying aware of response effort and how it impacts follow through. We reduce any of the friction that is present for the parents, at least as much as possible. Parents are more likely to follow through when the strategy doesn't require special materials or 10 extra steps. If reinforcement means grabbing a snack from the same cabinet they're already in, it's going to happen more often than if it requires setting up a complex token economy from scratch. And finally, we're using behavioral principles and habit formation. This is where it all comes together. When the parent uses a strategy at the same time in the same way during the same routine, they build muscle memory. Eventually, they don't have to think about it. It just becomes part of how they parent. And that's what we're really after. Strategies that don't just work when we're there, but that keep working long after that we're gone. Here's how I coach families and myself through this process. I start by asking about their routines. This should sound somewhat familiar. We need to ask more questions and talk less, especially when we first start with a family. Use questions like, what does your morning look like from the time your child wakes up to when they leave the house? Or what's the hardest part of your day? These questions reveal powerful moments for embedding and not just teaching. Then choose one routine to focus on. Don't try to embed skills in 12 parts of the day. Start with just one. Maybe it's bath time, dinner, or the school drop off. This makes implementation manageable and visible for the parents. Then identify the skill where it fits naturally. Let's say we're teaching prompting and reinforcement. And that might look like when your child comes to the table, prompt them to sit with a simple direction and reinforce with praise or preferred food. It's ABA, but it doesn't feel like work to the parent because it's part of what they're already doing with just a small little shift. Make sure to modify the environment to support the routine. Place visuals where they're going to be seen. Keep reinforcers handy. Use kitchen timers, song cues, or sticky notes, whatever works in that setting and for that particular family. And finally, reinforce the parents' contingencies. Celebrate the wins, no matter how small. Point out the momentum that they're building. You can say something like, you're already doing this every night. The way you've worked it in is awesome. Remember to adjust the reinforcement to align with what motivates each parent. Each parent is different, just like their kids. And when we embed strategies in everyday routines, we stop asking parents to change their entire lives and start helping them build habits that they actually can sustain. And that's when ABA stops being a service and starts becoming part of the family's rhythm every day. Okay, so we're moving along. We have just 2 more steps to go. I know this might feel like a lot, but it's a task analysis of all the strategies you need to fully engage parents. If you take this step by step, you're going to see parents following through in ways that you couldn't have imagined. So the next step is step V, and that's visualize progress. You need to make the invisible visible. Parents don't just need to hear that they're doing a good job. They need to see that what they're doing is working and making an actual difference in their lives. It's hard to see that in the moment when they're living it day to day. When we help them visualize progress, real, measurable, observable change, we reinforce their participation. And that reinforcement keeps them showing up, it keeps them trying, and it keeps them growing as a parent. In their 2005 study, Noel et al. Found that performance feedback significantly improved treatment integrity for teachers implementing behavior plans. And the same concept holds true for parents. When we give parents consistent data-based feedback about what's working, they're more likely to keep doing it. It's basic behavioral science. Behavior that contacts reinforcement is more likely to happen again, and that includes parent behavior. But here's the problem. A lot of progress in ABA happens very slowly. It's easy for parents to feel like things aren't changing, especially when there are still tantrums, regressions, or really hard days. And that's why this step is so important. We have to help them see the small wins that show forward movement. And this doesn't have to be fancy. Here are a few ways I've done this in practice. Try reflecting progress through the parent's own experiences. For example, maybe in the first session, the parent said something like, every transition is a huge meltdown. But 4 weeks later, they casually mentioned, he actually helped clean up last night without me asking twice. And there's your opening. Reflect it back to them. Do you remember how stressed you were about transitions when we first started? That's a huge shift. It's not about a data point. It's about connecting what they're doing to what they're seeing. Those everyday comments are the data that matter to the parents. You're just shining a new light on them. Another great strategy is to use video comparisons. Record a short clip of a routine like snack time or transitions in week 1. And then again, a couple of months later. Let the parents see the difference, not just in the child's behavior, but how confidently they're interacting with their child. One parent told me, I didn't even realize how much calmer I sounded now until I watched that video. So you also want to track stress scores over time. If you're using the parent stress scale, review scores together after a few months. Even a small decrease is a powerful reinforcer for the parent. You're doing something right and it's starting to pay off. Progress doesn't have to be big to be powerful. When we make small changes visible, we reflect the growth back to the parent. We reinforce the most important behavior in the entire treatment plan, and that's the parent showing up and doing the work. Okay, so we are on our last step, but that doesn't make it any less important. Step E is to evolve the plan because life doesn't stand still. This final step is about staying responsive because if there's one thing we can count on in parent training, it's this. What works today might not work next month. Life shifts, stress levels go up and down, routines get disrupted, new goals emerge. And if we're still working off the same plan we wrote 3 months ago, we might be missing the moment. In their 2019 paper on compassionate care, Taylor, LeBlanc, and Nosek emphasized the importance of adapting procedures based on parent feedback, family circumstances, and evolving priorities. Yet many BCBAs are pressured to stick to static plans, often written to satisfy insurance requirements more than they are designed to serve families. But if we truly want parents to engage long term, we need to treat the plan like a living document, one that grows with the family, not one that limits them. So let's talk about how to evolve the plan without rewriting the whole thing. You don't need a new template. You don't need to overhaul it quarterly. Evolving the plan is more about how you show up in conversation than what you're actually writing in a document. Parents don't care as much about what's written down as the insurance companies do. Sometimes it's as simple as noticing a shift in a parent's tone and asking, hey, has something changed since we last met? Or hearing a new stressor and responding with something like, okay, what if we paused that goal that we're working on for now and focused on what feels doable this week? Or maybe even checking in at a progress meeting and saying something like, we set this goal a while ago. Does it still feel like the right fit? You're not tearing the plan down. You're listening to the parent in the moment and adjusting the edges. And that's often enough. Think of it this way. You're not the architect of a fixed structure. You're the gardener tending to a living thing. You prune, you adapt, you respond to growth. Because families don't move in straight lines, and our plans shouldn't either. Great parent training doesn't mean getting the plan right the first time. It means building a plan that can change when the family changes. Because evolving the plan isn't a setback, it's a sign that the process is working. You made it through the full Achieve framework, and I hope by now you're seeing parent engagement in a whole new light, because this isn't about doing more. It's about doing it all a little bit differently. It's not about convincing parents to care. It's about creating systems that invite them to succeed. You already have the critical skills. You already know the science. This framework gives you the structure to apply it in a way that's sustainable for both you and the families that you serve. I want to give you a chance to see the whole framework together one more time before we end. This will be in your workbook if you're taking this for CEU, so you don't have to have it memorized. So the first step is A, assess the environment. Start with curiosity, not with assumptions. Understand what the parent is carrying before you teach them to carry more. And then C is to collaborate on goals. Make sure you're aiming at something that matters to them. Shared goals lead to shared successes. And we have H, hook with reinforcement. Help parents feel the difference their actions make. Quick wins, praise, and connection keep them going. Then there's I, introduce skills gradually. Slow down to teach well. Confidence is built one rehearsal at a time. And then E is embed in the everyday. Stop assigning strategies and build habits into the routines that they already live. V is to visualize progress. Show them what's working, name it, reflect it, celebrate it every single week. And then E is to evolve the plan. Stay flexible, life changes, and your plan should too. So let's talk about what your next step is here. You don't need to overhaul your whole caseload. Just start with one family. Look at where they are in this process. Are you aligned on goals? Is the stress level that they're experiencing manageable? Do they feel successful? Choose one step from the framework to lean into with them this week. And that's it. One family, one shift, one intentional act of support, and watch what happens. You're not doing this in a vacuum. You'll have messy schedules, resistant parents, agency expectations, and burnout. So before you walk away from this training, let's talk about the most common barriers you might hit and how you can move through them. The very first barrier might be you thinking, I don't have enough time to do this with every single parent. And here's the thing, you don't need to do it with every parent, at least not right away. Just start with one. This isn't about creating more work for you. It's about making the work you're already doing more effective. As you build this framework into your routine and make it a habit, do you see what I did there? Will become easier and more automatic. Then you can continue to expand how you use the framework. So another barrier you might experience is that maybe you have parents that don't want to engage. Most parents do want to be involved, but they don't always feel capable, welcomed, or even safe to do that. That might not have anything to do with you. It could be some of their past lived experiences. Use step A to reassess their stress and step H to help them feel successful again. Focus on the smallest baby steps for these parents and see if you can build some momentum with those. The reality is that some parents are under so much other stress that they don't have the capacity for more. In these cases, see if you can connect them with other resources that can help reduce some of those stressors. You don't have to solve all of their problems for them or be their therapist, but try to guide them to where they can get more help so that they can be more available to the support you have available to offer. Although there are probably a ton of barriers you could experience, I'm going to talk about just one more. And that one might be that you're afraid to do it wrong. And to this one, I say, good, because that means you care. But here's the thing, you already have the skills. This framework just helps you use them with intention. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. You can do this, and I've created some resources that can help you. You've just learned the framework that can truly transform the way you engage families in ABA. But even with the best framework, implementation can feel overwhelming, especially if you're building everything on your own. Everything we've talked about today, the structure, the step-by-step process, the need for flexibility and clarity comes together in our Achieve Parent Training curriculum. The Achieve Parent Training Assessment is the backbone of the entire curriculum. Whether you're using the printable version or our new online program, it helps you evaluate parent understanding and use of ABA strategies. You can track goal progress and guide individualized parent training, all in one place. It measures current parent skill level, includes sample goals with measurable action steps, allows you to mark and track progress over time. It automatically graphs each reassessment to show change clearly, and it works with both the PDF and our online curriculum and our paperback. This is how you show parent progress clearly and simply. And the assessment includes a dashboard that automatically shows bar graphs for each domain. Achieve Online includes 12 semi-custom parent training plans that focus on 7 main lessons to reduce overwhelm and to build momentum. Each plan includes a tailored assessment. The dashboard for these assessments look a little different. They still include the bar graph, but they also include, they pull the parent goals and the goal progress so you can see at a glance how these things are going. And the rating scales are color coded areas of strength and need. And there's a place where parent priorities can be marked and progress is tracked. And finally, the assessment includes pre-written sample goals with action steps and evaluation methods to get you started. You can use the full assessment, or you can focus on the sub-assessments that match the 12 semi-custom plans if you're using the online program. This gives you real-time insight into what's working and what needs more support. This gives you clear direction for your parent training, and that in turn shows parents how vital their role is. The curriculum is available for both PDF and paperback, depending on what you prefer. The curriculum offers 42 structured lessons aligned with the Achieve framework. It also includes clear visuals for complex concepts, real-life examples, and skill-building assignments. And it's an easy reference for in-session coaching or in-between session work. You can use it as your main tool or a supplement to other resources. It's flexible enough to meet the diverse needs of all of your families. The lessons are organized to be accessible and flexible. You'll find caregiver-facing lessons like ABA strategies that stick, sustainable parenting, and responding with compassion. Each lesson includes a clear overview, examples, visuals, and a quiz and practice activity. Use it as a guide during in-person training, or you can leave it behind to do as a resource for parents between sessions. It's everything you need to run impactful parent sessions without building your materials from scratch. And finally, the Achieve Online platform gives you a fully digital version of the curriculum that's both customizable and easy for parents to use. It includes the full curriculum plus 12 semi-custom training plans. It includes a built-in survey to guide plan selection, direct links or QR codes. There's no logins needed for parents. And each lesson has a short explainer video, downloadable guides, and a quiz. There's also optional branding, real-time quiz tracking, and custom subdomains for your practice. The online system starts with the Pathway to Progress guide with a 30-question survey that recommends the best fit plan for each family. Each plan includes 7 targeted lessons to reduce overwhelm. Lessons include short videos using analogies and plain language. It has printable guides and assignments and quizzes for self-checks. It has a ready-to-go structure delivered in a format that families actually can use. The full curriculum is also available if you prefer not to use the semi-custom plans and design your own path for parents. Before we close, I want you to know you don't have to do this alone. We created the Achieve Parent Training Curriculum to help you implement everything we've talked about today in a way that fits your practice and your families. If you want a deeper look at how it all works, you'll find the walkthrough video below this video and a link to learn more. But whether you choose to use Achieve or build your own tools from what you've learned today, just remember this. Parent training isn't about fixing families. It's about building capacity. It's about showing up with clarity and compassion and saying, I'm not here to lecture you. I'm here to help you build something that works for you. And when we do that, parents stop canceling, they stop disengaging, they start partnering. And that's when everything changes. I want to make sure you have your final code word before you hop off. And that final code word is success. When you follow the Achieve framework, you help your clients and their families experience success. So, one last time, that final code word is success. And that wraps it up for today. I hope you walk away with the tools you need to fully engage parents in parent training. As you can tell, this is a huge passion of mine. And I'm thrilled to have a chance to share it with all of you today. If you're watching this for CEUs, you will need to complete the quiz in the Mission Accomplished lesson. There's a brief survey in that same form. Please take a minute to complete it and let me know what you thought of this course. It helps me improve the courses that I'm offering. And make sure to email me with any questions at support@masteraba.com. Thanks for joining me today. I will see you in the comments.